I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. And looks like we have a quorum available on the site. So we'll go ahead and get going. Looks like our first item is public comment. Any public comment at this time? None. Next item of business is approval of February 20th meeting agenda. So
Motion to approve the meeting agenda.
is there a second?
Yeah.
Moved and seconded to approve the meeting agenda for today. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed no. Ayes have it, agenda is approved. Next item is approval of the January 16th meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to amend or approve?
Motion to approve.
Been moved to approve the January 16th minutes. Do we have a second? Second. Moved and seconded to approve the January 16th meeting minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed no. All right, minutes are approved for January 16th. Next item is board member reports. Do any members have a report they would like to put forward at this time, verbally or written?
I'll share that at our last commission meeting, we did approve the Fortner Farm Conservation Project that this board put forward. And that was received in a very positive light, and all the feedback's been positive that I've heard about that. And then there was another project approved as well that came through the LCAP board. That did go through.
We got some good grass.
Yeah,
There. See.
yeah, and people pay attention to that, because I heard from some folks who had seen that article, so that was good.
Pass that around. I can give an update on
Yeah.
our issue with the farms. So we're trying to, there's a special use permit for a landing strip, just to catch it, that's being proposed that's in the middle of Sanimash Valley, Big Sanimash Valley, which is directly in front of our farm. There was a hearing last couple of weeks ago, I forget now, but basically there were three of us. I was denied legal standing. It's an issue I can see with the planning board that it seems like they don't understand what's involved with really with farming, because the questions I was asking, and they said, well, it looks like your barn is far away from the proposed landing strip. And I said, well, I don't keep my cows in the barn. I mean, it's the fields, raising the fields right by there. And I was denied legal standing, which means I can't really appeal anything that the board decides now. But two others in our group did receive legal standing. We retained an attorney. This has been an interesting process to see the procedures for land use, as far as how it happens from the zoning and variances, and that's what the board is used to dealing with. They're used to dealing with buildings and setbacks and things like that. But this sort of a new history. You have an aircraft, and their conclusion was 100 feet is plenty enough room that it's not going to bother anybody, which I don't understand that. Our attorney doesn't either, but that's what they decided. And we have to go with that. But it's been, we got about halfway through, so the next meeting is 13 March, and that should finalize all of this. But my feeling is it's been interesting to observe this, like I said, from this board's point of view, is there seems to be a lack of any weight given to any conservation areas or any conservation focus areas. It's just, they strictly look at, okay, is this applicant doing everything they need to do to be within the ordinances that we have on the books? And this being an open use, the standards are really loose. That basically the only standards are, it has to be in harmony with the community, which I don't understand how this could possibly be, given the noise and the fact that we have areas of conservation. But that's not even really a play for this. Is the whole conservation angle, which is sort of this. That's what it is.
And this is the board of adjustment.
Yes.
And was they've not taken a vote yet, but they did the one you standings.
That's what they did first. They first approved the company who has legal standing.
Interesting. Okay, the other two, they did provide legal standing because they were neighbors as well.
Their rationale was, okay, the aircraft is gonna fly directly over them. Otherwise, that was it. That what they had decided was, because that airstrip is at 2 acres in the middle of a hayfield. No one's property physically touches that airfield. That's what they used to say. I was not eligible. It's my property doesn't physically touch that 2 acre strip and ruin the hayfield.
Because it's actually been parceled out.
Yes.
And so the quarter of it.
But no, I mean, no.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. Sounds like maybe they've done this kind of thing before. All right, any other reports or comments on the business? Seeing none, we will go into the new board appointment discussion. So which one there, which one of you are leading that?
Yeah, I can go for it. So we have, I believe, 2 positions open. Terry and Susie will be reappointed. But 2 vacant positions. We've had 1 applicant, same applicant, I think that we mentioned last board meeting. I think we emailed the application to all the board members for you to review. Sure how to say his last name, but Kyle Guy or yeah. Anywho, so our suggestion is to discuss the applicant and decide if we want to bring that for appointment to the commissioners. Because Ed and David's position, their term ended. We need to fill those positions so that we can make sure we get quorum. So yeah.
And Kyle with me, I know that Kyle did apply before. He's been interested in serving on this board for some time, but it's the previous time. It wasn't the position that we needed. I just remember.
It wasn't the region that you lived in. So these positions, we have one that's a position that's open to any region in the county, and then the other one needs to be specific to the Hominy, Candler, Arvin region.
So Kyle would meet the open position because he actually lives over Alexander, or he has a Marshall address, but he is in Buncombe County. Not too far from Allison Farms Vineyard, if you know where that is. And they have a farm.
Yeah.
As well.
They have, I think they have sheep and do some fiber arts kind
Yeah.
of stuff. I believe he owns a landscaping company.
He does.
He's also worked for Land of Sky as a planner and has done a variety of different things in this, kind of.
That was where I first met him, Linda Scott, and he's always had a focus on ag, really interested in. I feel good about, so I would make a motion to recommend to the commission that we appoint Kyle to serve in the at-large position on the ag advisory board.
Been moved to appoint Kyle to the at-large seat on the board. Is there a second? Second. Been moved and seconded to appoint Kyle to the board. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. So we will put Kyle forward to recommend to the full board for approval.
And so if you have any other ideas of folks that would be good for that other position, which would be the Hominy, Candler, Arvin kind of region of the county, send them our way. We can get an application info, and we'll try to.
The guy who's spraying our plaza right now.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. That's awesome.
Does he live outside of
Okay.
That's great. Yeah. And I believe I'm pretty sure at this stage, we've filled the requirement of board members that have to be farming, so it doesn't necessarily have to be an active farmer. It could be open, a bit wider too. But it's always different.
Yeah, Kyle would not count as active farmer.
Yeah.
I think it's his wife that's actually doing active farming.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, we recently, I'll let me do this, but we recently did, our annual renewal for that and bad letters. To, yeah.
So I guess before we start on that, we realized the last time, there were 5 board members and one of the applications for eval was Mark's, and he recused himself from the vote, and so technically he went not for. So I brought those projects back, for this list, and so we'll just have to re-vote on them. But yes, we have started working on our VAD and eval renewals, so we've sent out a lot of letters. We've gotten a pretty good response back, and so a lot of those applicants on that list are all renewals. And we have Steve and Mark's properties that are also marked for renewal, so basically they'll recuse themselves from the vote for their project, and then the board can vote at large for others.
And we even have enough board members, they can just recuse themselves and one vote if you want.
So in terms of procedure, let's go ahead and I'll recuse from the vote. And then I guess, Art doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So all other members of the board have the applications before you there in your packet. Do I hear a motion to approve applications for VAD and eval renewal?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded to approve the applications for VAD and eval renewal. All in favor, or excuse me, is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And all applications are approved. And so next is our farmland preservation report.
Alrighty, like just mentioned, we've been doing the renewals and removals. We have, several years ago when we took on completely VAD from the planning department, we used to kind of share it together. There was an intern that did a big cleanup of the layer, but during this time of doing the renewals and removals, we've noticed that there was a chunk that hadn't been cleaned up as well. So anywho, we are doing the final, hopefully, cleanup of this layer. And so the reason I mention this is because our goal is that about a month ago, we did a mail out. In a couple more months, we're going to do another mail out. We're trying to remind folks so that we don't have a big loss in the program. But by the summer, we're basically setting ourselves a date that if we don't hear back, by this date, then they're out of the program. So in the next few months, you'll see the totals on the VAD and eval fluctuate a little bit, but it's not necessarily some of it is because people aren't responding, some of it is because there were old properties that need to be removed. So just wanted to give you a bit of a heads up that there will be some changes in the acreage totals, but nothing to be alarmed about. Of me and I and our director Jennifer have spent about 3 or so days doing a big program process update. We're taking our lessons learned that we've learned over the last year or two and really taking a look at the easement process that we're mostly around the easement process, but taking lessons learned around the challenges and successes over the last couple of years, and and basically updating what we're doing, putting together some new materials, and which we're happy to share with you, but basically streamlining our process to hopefully avoid issues or folks backing out or those kinds of things. So feeling really positive about that, and excited to start new projects with the new process. So we have also done an RFP to hire a new easement attorney because our current one is retiring very, very soon. So we are in the process of contracting out and interviewing and that kind of thing. We have all of our monitoring visits scheduled for this year for our easements. We have contracted out to help us with our workload. Using Equinox, they have a couple wildlife biologists, and they're helping us do some of our monitoring visits this year. Which is great. This was part of the initial proposal around having the open space bond increase our workload and all of that. We were able to get some contracting funding to be able to help with monitoring. So our long-term goal is that, well, maybe short-term goal is that we might have to do this for this year and next year, but then hopefully we would be able to have more support, potentially like a part-time person or something like that, to be able to help with monitoring and keep it in-house, because we think that those relationships are super important to keep, you know, the face-to-face contact with our landowners. So that's happening. We have communicated with all of our easement landowners, letting them know you won't be seeing us this year, you'll be seeing these two guys, you know, making sure they have a picture and a, you know, a little background, but you know, about those folks, so that they're not shocked when they see somebody on their property, they have a heads up. So anywho, we've been doing quite a few presentations recently. We were asked by the state, NCDA ADFP program, to do a voluntary ag district record keeping presentation. We did it last week, and that went really well. Talking about how we've revamped our process and yeah. Anyways, we did that, and then in 2 days we're doing a training. A presentation at the Ag Cost Share training all around farmland preservation and what it looks like for a district to have that program. And so this is a training where a lot of the soil and water technicians all across the western region will be, and there's been a big interest in districts having easement programs. So we're hopefully going to give them kind of an overview of like what all does it entail as these districts are starting to think about holding their own easement program. So
Keep hearing from folks in Henderson.
yeah. I've been working with Jonathan Wallen at the Soil and Water District there to try to help him with whatever he needs to put that proposal forward with his commissioners. So we have job descriptions, program, you know, documents, all that fun stuff. So fingers crossed for them.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, Friends of Ag Breakfast, we're doing that on March 26th. We're hoping to get it in this, you know, maybe a little on the edge of the you know, the off season for farmers, but doing it in March, but it's better than the summer. So, and it continues our hope of getting it out in the communities by having it out in Lester Community Center. So my question to you guys is, you saw Whitney present. Whitney Meadows is going to be the one presenting on PUV. And I feel like we had a really good discussion. We were able to ask for specific questions. So my hope is that we can model this talk. It's going to be broader. It's not going to be you know, so specific on easements, but I'd like her to give a presentation, but then half of the talk at the community seminar be more of a question and answer type of format. So if you have specific ideas of questions I can pose to her, or you know, that are common in the ag community, to kind of get a discussion going, let me know. I'm gonna putting that kind of information together to make it a bit more interactive.
So will she also talk about the conservation easements? I mean, I know there's the PUV, but I know sometimes there's questions around.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping to have, like some questions. I have my own questions, you know, and maybe what I'll do is I can put like a draft of the ideas we have together and send it to you guys, and if there's missing items, you can let me know. But I'm gonna kind of try to facilitate that, like through the questions, and then maybe I will prompt other people to ask questions.
That's a good idea, because I think the key thing is for folks to understand that there, you know, how easy it is to get inaccurate information out there. And apparently there's some inaccurate information out there thinking that if you put your farm in conservation easement, you're no longer in PUV. That is not accurate, right? But that is what some are still thinking for whatever reason. So, and that's some that are out in our Lester area. So I think it would be
So this is
really good,
perfect, timing.
good to address that and get the accurate information.
Yes, maybe I could have like a myths, like, what's a myth? Just like, you know, talk. Okay, cool, that's.
Omni could be the myth, but
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. All right, well, we have also set our conservation donor dinner date for June 13th at 6 p.m. and it will be at Claxton Farm.
yay, thank you.
So yeah, we're excited to be able to do it on a conservation
Oh,
farm.
that's gonna be wonderful.
Yeah, beautiful. So we're working, collecting our, you know, updating our list and everything. We'll send those invites out.
Maybe they can make a cake. You know?
Okay.
Well, I think it's close to my birthday.
Yeah, there we go. That's good to know.
Thanks, Steve.
So yeah, mark your calendars. It's always great to have board members at this event. You know, you'll get an email invite, but sometimes it's helpful to have it ahead of schedule.
And if everybody, try to help reach out to all the farmers you know about our next ag breakfast too, because not everybody's on the email list that they send out. So if you send it out to your neighbors and everything.
I'm also gonna get it on the neon sign there.
Oh, yeah, our.
Oh, I know. That's my goal, so that we can provide this, yeah.
But I need, I need like 4 words to describe it, I can only have a few words, so. But yeah, I'm gonna get it on the side, but yes, please do send out to anybody, if you need that in a digital form, I'm happy to send it out.
Yeah,
Just do
send that to us whenever you send us the questions.
Yeah.
Okay. And all right, so project updates. We're in the final stages of Larson easement, dealing with a few little right-of-way things with our neighbor, finishing up the appraisal, and then we'll schedule the closing. So I think in the next month or two, we'll have that one closed. We did close the Wesley easement on January 22nd. And so that's exciting. She's very happy, we're happy. And Ramsey, I mentioned last time, we closed in December, but we have submitted all of our final paperwork and we have the final payment delivered. We're also working with him, we got him an EVAD, so you saw that in that application list. And we're working to do some cost share stuff with him too, to fix up some of the drainage issues on the property. The Southern Appalachian Community Farm we're still dealing with that disputed area. There has been some progress, we've decided to exclude it. Southern Appalachian is dealing with the landowner, trying to figure out the specific area that will be excluded. So once they've come to terms on the area, we will update the survey and be able to. Schluter, no changes, just waiting for a grant application to be approved.
How long have we been working on school? How many years now?
At least 4. Well, and the reason it's going on is because he decided he did want to wait for us to apply for additional funding, otherwise we would have closed last summer.
Yeah, he was eligible because he didn't get the 50%, he just got the 25% from the state, and so he was eligible, we're able to go and ask for an additional 25 to get the 50%, and so that's the delay, but additionally.
So you got 25% from the state rather than 50?
We applied for 50 from the feds,
Okay.
25 from the state, and so the only way that the state would increase it to 50, because we didn't get the federal funds. The state said they would increase it to 50 if we applied for this additional funding cycle that came out this fall.
Okay.
But that means he has to wait now until the summer to hear back that he gets approved for the 50, and then we can get, you know, pretty quickly into closing, because we were ready to close last summer. And he was happy with waiting that additional cycle to get the additional funding, so. But yes, it's been a process because we reapplied for the federal grant. We didn't get it once, we reapplied, he still didn't get it, so that is an extra year. But yeah, he's
In there. Yeah. What did we learn from that with the federal grants? What is it?
we learned, we learned a lot with the federal grants. They claim to have a lot of money, but they don't really wanna give it out very easily. And I think one piece of that is that all projects are ranked compared across the state. So our project, so in perfect examples, we submitted two, we haven't heard back, on any funding yet, but this past year we submitted two with like almost 99%. Which is always what they say, will fund practical projects. But we're, comparing a 50-acre farm with a 1,000-acre farm out east that might be private soils as well. So instead of ranking regionally like the state grant does, the federal grant ranks statewide, and you're comparing projects of different sizes across the state. So they're telling us they have more money in different pools of funding, but we haven't quite seen that yet. So we have learned over the last couple years, it has to be a very particular project for the federal, grant to fund it. So hopefully that improves. I have given that feedback to the state, representative, or not representative, the state grant, coordinator. And he has said that they are thinking of updating their ranking system to be more regional. But with the federal program, it's the way all these forms and programs are made, it's to be almost nationwide, not state. So anyway, we've given the feedback, not sure how much that helps, but they are looking at it.
So the two that we submitted this year for federal, we're feeling pretty good about those.
So that was Russ Robertson and Okoboji projects. So we hope they've done their first batch of ranking, and it has not been funded in the first batch, but that doesn't mean it's a lost cause. Apparently they keep getting more waves of funding. So the state person has said he feels positive about it, keep our fingers crossed, but we don't really know. That's for federal money. So we also submitted for Russ Robertson with the state, and I feel very confident that with the state funding, he will get funded with at least the state. It could be a situation where the state and the federal both fund it and they can match the funding together. Okoboji, because it's a homeowners association owned project, was not eligible for the state grant, but they do that. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed. But Jasper Wood Farm easements, those 4 easements, we've submitted all the baselines, all the deeds for review, and we have a closing goal of April for those easements. So we're doing back and forth edits. Splendor Valley, I have submitted an extension request so our contract expiration date was March. I submitted an extension request for both the state and the federal. They approved both extension requests for a year to get it closed. There was lots of pleading involved to try to hold the funding, but because we didn't want to lose the funds. But that being said, we talked to the landowner. We are requiring monthly updates of the progress of refinancing and getting a subordination agreement and all of this in order to get us to closing well before a year. So yeah, that's what we're doing there. So that's good that we're able to hold onto the funding and to get it finished. So Clark is in the process of doing another appraisal to get a subordination agreement with their bank. They're paying for that. Worthen and Kreppel finished the survey. We're waiting on deed work because we're in the process of hiring an attorney. So they're kind of on hold at the moment, as well as Stonen. Like Terry mentioned, we got the Farm Fortner bond project approved. And we have the survey and environmental assessment started on Rogers Farm Truck, David Rogers and Fisher. And then here's 2 pictures of Wesley closing.
We go there all these years.
He's a happier Joe. Exactly. Alrighty, so All right, that's all I have to report, but we wanna talk a little bit about the VAD and EVAD discussion item on the agenda, so. Like we mentioned, we did the VAD and EVAD renewals over the last month. We have gotten a lot of responses, and then last week, Gary called and with some questions around just generally, I think specifically the EVAD side of the project. So I emailed some information out to the board, just giving you a heads up on some items, but I think the big question is around EVAD. So EVAD is our 10-year binding conservation agreement. So when a landowner joins that program, they sign an application, and then we sign a EVAD deed and record it at the Register of Deeds. So the way that works as of now for our program is that that's a 10-year agreement, and in the deed and in our ordinance, it states that it can be renewed, it has an automatic renewal of a 3-year period. Unless the landowner lets us know that they want to be removed from the program. Both, you know, and not do the 3-year renewal. So that's kind of generally how we've been administrating the program. But I think the question is, like, if you want to go for it, I can hand it over to you. But the question is, what we have done is that after those 3 years of automatic renewal, the parcel is removed from the program, and then they have to reapply for the 10-year period, and we do another EVAD deed. And then they can still do the 3-year automatic renewal, and then you'd have to reapply. So I think the question that Gary has is, can it just be continually renewed at 3-year intervals? Or I will let you go for it.
Well, I was on the board when we adopted the EVAD program, and actually my farm, I think, was the first one that went in.
Oh.
My question is, the 10-year is a permanent easement, not a permanent easement, but it cannot be revoked.
Right.
It's a deed restriction on the property. At the end of the 10 years, it says that you can automatically renews for 3 years. I talked with Ed, and he was of the opinion that at the end of the 3 years, it automatically renewed again for another 3 years, and subsequently done that. And according to the North Carolina statutes, there's nothing in the North Carolina statutes that you have to completely help, that you can continue it as long as you want to keep it in there. And the problem I see is us losing some farmland because of people like Ed. You know, I think Ed had his in it, and he sent the form in to renew it, and he didn't realize he was renewing it for another 10 years. He thought it was in 3-year cycles. So I think he canceled his application. So the general statute of North Carolina, I'll read it quickly. Conservation agreement entered into between the county and the city and the landowner shall be irrevocable for a period of 10 years from the date of the agreement is executed. At the end of this term, the conservation agreement shall automatically renew for a term of 3 years unless notice of termination is given in a timely manner by either party. I can't find anything in the state ordinances that says that that's it, you're out, or you have to completely start over. And I don't remember, that's been a few years ago, it's been 13 years ago that we adopted that. And Ed couldn't either remember putting that in there. If you have that in there, what involved is starting over, making a whole new deed, registering the Register of Deeds. And I don't know, you know, if we put it as the state statute is, it would probably have to go back to the Board of Commissioners for approval because of their ordinance.
Yeah, so I put on the screen where this is a clip from the EVAD deed, and absolutely, there's no clarification specifically saying. Okay, then you start over for 10 years, or you can continuously renew at 3-year intervals. In the EVAD deed, it doesn't say that. There's no like specific guidance on one way or the other.
So where's this coming from?
So this right here is within the language within the EVAD deed that a landowner signs to be in EVAD. So that's taken, we get that deed language updated every so often to make sure it's in compliance with what the state recommends.
This is on the county.
This right here,
on the state.
Okay.
yeah, so this right here is the farmland preservation ordinance at the county level. So it does say can be renewed for an additional term of 3 years unless ag advisory with the landowner has a written notice, and that they want to be removed. And then the state statute here says, for a period of at least 10 years, at the end of this term, a conservation agreement shall be automatically renewed for a term of 3 years unless notice of termination is given in a timely manner, to be removed. So we were searching for, basically, if we want it to be continually renewed at 3-year intervals, we'd have to have that in the county ordinance. We'd have to have that in the county ordinance. We also have to have it in our EVAD deed. But we were trying to figure out, some direction statewide. So we went to the NCDA Farmland Preservation Director and asked his opinion of what are the rules around this? What are other people doing? So he said this actually is a pretty common question amongst other districts. And there are a lot of differing opinions on the subject. So some counties have built in a continuous 3-year renewal system. So basically you wouldn't have to do another EVAD deed if you didn't want to. But this is the very basis of the program is built on that 10-year agreement window. So a lot of districts do the 10-year agreement, 3-year automatic, then 10-year agreement, 3-year automatic renewal. So continually, and that's how we have been administering the program, at least since I've started. And so, it is an additional fee every time we record a new EVAD deed every 10 years, but we have that in our budget to be able to pay for another EVAD deed.
We haven't, I know you said that's the way we've been handling, but we haven't done it. Because mine would be the first one coming up to be.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess, but logistically, to renew it every 3 years, that would be a lot more renewals that we'd have to stay on top of. Because the thing is, a lot of times if a landowner placed their property in EVAD and then say they pass and now their kids have these restrictions in place that they may not have even known because their parents took the property. And then they're automatically renewed every 3 years and say they have 2 years left and now they can't do anything with the property because there are restrictions. They have to wait for the 2 years and then ask us to opt out of that. And it's just, I think just logistically, the burden of ensuring that the landowners tell us, hey, it's coming, your term's coming to an end. You need to tell us you want to opt out of it now, otherwise you'll be renewed in the program. And you won't be able to do anything for another 3 years. And that
records keeping wise,
yes,
it's kind of logistically.
Yeah, doing that every 3 years for however many properties versus every 10 years is just a lot. I think it would be cleaner and more efficient on with staff capacity to do that every 10 years and then every 3 years instead of every 3 years.
And the director said it's best practices to have one renewal, to have that 3 years as the one automatic renewal and then start back with the 10 years. That's what they're recommending at the state level, is to do it 10 years, 3-year automatic, and then another EVAD agreement, 10 years.
Did the director say why he or she recommended that, what was the reasons they recommended that was the best practice?
So yeah, basically he says it's not practical for administrative side of things, and also it leaves, it's not necessarily clear at the register of deeds either within these, within the deed language. So it's not saying where it is now, it says, we actually say in the deed, after 10 years plus the 3-year, it's out of the program. If it's a continual 3-year, you're not, like, there's no clear where you are exactly in the agreement. And we reached out to the registry of deeds too to get some, clarification on like how we could do that.
Yeah, he also said that it's not as, 3-year term is not as effective for farmland preservation, which is the goal of the program, compared to 10 or 13-year. So the whole point of EVAT is to have restrictions to preserve farmland. The 3-year term is obviously a lot shorter than 10, 13.
So I guess the idea is, what is the benefit of it? And does the benefit outweigh the administrative side?
And so
Well,
Gary,
yeah, you must see a benefit to it.
Beg your pardon?
You must see a benefit to it just being recurring ever after. Why would you prefer it to be that way rather than having to go back to the 10-year?
Because you have 2 deeds that are recorded on there. If administratively, it seems to me that it would be easier to let it automatically renew every 3 years, rather than them having to make a whole new deed and record it and everything. Because in a 3-year cycle, listen, I come in and tell them, in my 3-year cycle, I'm gonna take it on. You don't have to have anything with the farmer. And if it's set up in the county ordinance that way, saying it automatically renews for 3-year periods, at the end of each 3-year, renews for another 3 years, and there's nothing in the general statutes that I can find that bids that. My problem is like Ed, you want to have farms that are 9 years old. Do I want to keep it in this program? Or do I want to commit for another 10 years? I have kids. Mine, one of them's on the farm with me, helps me farm. They don't have the farm in Burnsville. And, we'll keep it in there. We didn't discuss putting the permanent conservation easement on it. I have 80-acre farm, and that's their concern, is having to start over what we agreed to start with.
Yeah, and I think that's a very valid concern. And I would also say conversely, sometimes it may be that if a landowner thinks that, if they have a 10-year agreement and then it automatically renews every 3 years, unless they come to us to take it out, they have to keep track of when that 3-year comes to an end, and otherwise it's going to keep being renewed. So part of me thinks that might be discouraging to some landowners because they have to keep track of exactly when, the term comes to an end or when it's going to be renewed. And if they don't opt out, then it'll automatically be renewed, and now they're set in for another 3-year renewal. So I guess it kind of.
what does it entail, like Gary, like say Gary's would come in, he had 3 years and he would have to redo it now for 10. What does that entail for him as the farmer landowner?
Signing 2 pieces of paper.
Okay.
One is, so we would send a renewal letter out. That includes a letter reminding, specifics about the program and a application. So then he sends the application in, we present the application to the board approves it here. Once the board has approved it, then we get him to sign an EVAT deed. And then we record the EVAT deed at the registry of deeds. So logistically, it's not that hard, there's some coordination and, signing, and then we record it, yeah.
At the end of the 13 years, you send them a new application sent out anyway, so all they have to do is put in the application, you want to move it 3 years instead of 10. With that number. So you mail a letter to them.
Right, yeah, we would have to then do it every 3 years instead of every 10, yeah. Or 13.
And so it's not really a point of paperwork and redoing, so it's more, you're concerned more that you wouldn't want to redo it for 10, you just want to be able to do it for 3, is that?
Well, I'm thinking of it's not, particularly for me, is for all the list of farmers we have on there that are gonna look at this. See, it doesn't say anything on there that has to come back and they want me to do, or I couldn't find it. There will be a farmer, a lot of farmers, you know, not do that. Unless it's automatically renewed, you're gonna lose some farmland that way. Most of them are in is it, the qualification to go into that you have to be on the tax,
It is not a requirement anymore. You have to have, you can be in pre-UV or be actively engaged in agriculture. So we have a variety of ways to be eligible.
one other advantage of this is to the farmer is if they do any, to soil and water, any, improvements of the property for soil and water, pay 75% of the improvement. When you go to the conservation easement, they get 90%.
Then when it's gonna be bad. Yeah. I'm actually gonna have to take off, but. If it were for me, I would say, I would prefer not to vote on that change, right now. I would prefer for y'all to send us some information with what you've collected, so we can hear pros and cons with the, where I am on it.
I would say that too, and I'd also like to hear from the register of deeds, is the, you know, what any pluses or minuses on their part. In terms of the deed modifications or anything like that. And the other question I had, this is no expense to the farmer, correct?
We have it already budgeted into our department budgets.
The only thing on the deed would be, they can put on the deed that we're using its regular periods, it would say that it had to be renewed back in 4 years. Example would be if the lender comes in and I want to get a loan on my property, and they see that registered, the way it's written, that's like a lien on the property, but however much of the 3 years is left. Because who they let them do it, buys it, is gonna keep it in farm use.
Be a deed restriction, I can understand the language, but yeah, but that is, I think now at this point, you know, we don't get a sense of what the board wants to do. Sounds like we want to get a little more information from the register of deeds and from the process here with staff. And then once we have that information, we would put this as an agenda item at a later meeting. Is that the consensus? Agree? All right. Good. So, and I think since this is a discussion, we don't necessarily have a motion to vote on there, but as it said for the group and as chair, I'll just direct staff to make those inquiries and get us more information, and we will put it on the agenda at a later date. Okay. Any other questions or discussion on this item? All right. Any
Glad
other?
to see all these new faces. I was on for 12 years and then 16 prior to that was on soil and water boards, so it's good to see a lot of new faces. I come in here and looked at Ed and you know who was the chairman?
John Hager.
Yeah, every week. 12 years.
We appreciate all your service. But any other announcements or discussion at this time?
I have 2 things. Forgot to mention that Banks Creek did come back and put all the signs up and did a good job on the water. The battery. And the other thing I want to get clarification on is solicitation. I know in a couple of these presentations, I heard that we don't solicit, but what I've learned from my past experience here that's going on is I'm almost in the belief that maybe we should be a little proactive in going out and saying, hey, can we save this land before something happens? And I just want to get a clarification on who's bound by no solicitation, or is that just?
So we're voluntary. So usually it's when landowners are coming to us and interested, but we have done like mail outs, informational mail outs, and we don't do little knocking on the door kind of thing, but and I think So there's some like wiggle room, you know, we can buy an introduction, somebody who knows somebody, you know, be, you know. Able to reach out and to do that kind of thing, but we're we wanna stay voluntary and non-regulatory vibes around the community, so we don't really want to make folks feel, you know, uncomfortable, like we're trying to get their land, you know, into an easement or whatever, but so I don't know if that made any sense, but. Yeah, exactly.
How many things feel like you're approaching them and
They feel uncomfortable by that, but you'll know regulation, but you as board members are like the feet out in the communities as well, so. So you feel free to communicate and, you know, plant the seed amongst the community and that kind of thing, and we're happy to help, you know, with whatever tools you need. And anybody you wanna send to us, we're happy to talk with them too. We just, yeah, we don't like wanna make people feel uncomfortable, cause we wanna keep that like trusted voice, you know, relationship in the community, so.
The way I sell it is every time I'm dealing with a farm, cattle farm. And they're at my farm, I tell them we're in conservancy, and a lot of times they'll say, what all does that entail, and why I'm doing that, I can explain it. And that puts the seed if they're interested, and then I tell them how to get in touch with you.
Exactly.
And that way,
And that's perfect.
it works for us, but you know, so.
Yeah, that's a great way for outreach, for sure. But if you do have somebody that like you want us to like email information to or mail information to or that kind of thing, we're happy to do that too, yeah.
I would love to. I've got a couple of landowners who provide that, you know, I've never discussed it with them, but it would be nice to have some sort of at least a sheet or a little packet. Because I'm just not conversant enough in all the legalities, and even though I went through it, my husband did most of the illegal work of it. I would love to have something to hand to them, just even if it's just one sheet or it's packet. Just so that they can kind of peruse it on their own. And maybe, you know,
Yeah.
and so I would love to get something from you that maybe explains when I approached it, say. Just, yeah, if you're interested, this is what we've done. Yes, they've never approached me and said anything, but I'm certainly, for no other reason, I would prefer to look at it.
Absolutely.
That herd of cattle as opposed to a herd of mobile homes, so.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely, we have all that information and we will get that to you for sure. We have like all levels of detail, so we have one pager and then we have like, you know, our initial kind of packet that we give landowners, so yeah, we can give you a bit of both.
Any other items or announcements from the board? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
So maybe.
All in favor?